My name is Jordan Hayes. I'm 31 years old, and 18 months ago I walked into my father's office and handed him a purchase agreement for Hayes Industrial Solutions, the manufacturing company he'd built over 35 years and run into the ground over the last 5. The company he'd told me I was too soft to ever understand. The company he'd laughed at me for thinking I could run better than him. The purchase price was $8.2 million, financed through a combination of private equity, my own capital, and seller financing that he was in no position to refuse. His choices were simple: sell to me and walk away with enough to retire comfortably, or watch the company collapse into bankruptcy within 6 months and lose everything. He signed. I became CEO the next day. And the man who'd spent my entire life telling me I'd never amount to anything in business now works as a special advisor reporting to his daughter, the one he said would never understand how real business works. But this story doesn't start with a purchase agreement. It starts 28 years ago when I was 3 years old and my father made it clear that having a daughter instead of a son was his greatest disappointment. If you've ever had a parent who couldn't see your potential because it didn't match their expectations, who dismissed your dreams because they didn't align with their vision, you'll understand why buying his company wasn't about revenge. It was about proving that his lack of faith in me was always his failure, not mine. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, in a split-level house 3 miles from the manufacturing plant where my father spent 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Hayes Industrial Solutions made custom metal parts for agricultural equipment. Not glamorous, but profitable in the Midwest farm economy. My father, Robert Hayes, had started the company in 1988 with a $50,000 loan and a handful of clients. By the time I was born in 1993, he'd built it into a $12 million annual revenue operation with 40 employees. He was proud, driven, and absolutely convinced that business was a man's domain. My mother, Catherine, had been his office manager in the early years. She'd helped him build the company, handled accounting, managed payroll, negotiated with suppliers. But once they had me, Dad decided she should stay home. "A child needs her mother," he said. What he really meant was, "I need you home because I'm the businessman and you're just support staff." Mom complied, gave up the work she loved, stayed home, raised me. I watched her slowly disappear into domesticity, watched her intelligence and capability get channeled into PTA meetings and casserole recipes. From my earliest memories, my father made his disappointment in my gender clear, not through explicit statements, but through 1,000 small cuts. When I was 5 and playing with toy cars, he said, "Girls should play with dolls, Jordan. That's what girls do." When I was 8 and asked if I could visit the plant, he said, "The shop floor isn't a place for little girls. It's dirty and dangerous. You'd be in the way." When I was 10 and won the school math competition, he said, "That's nice, honey," and went back to reading the Wall Street Journal. No celebration, no pride, just dismissal. When I was 13 and asked about the business, started asking how things worked, he'd give me vague non-answers. "You don't need to worry about that. Focus on school and your friends." But when my cousin Jake, 6 months younger than me, asked the same questions, Dad would spend an hour explaining supply chains, profit margins, client relationships, would take Jake to the plant, show him the machines, introduce him to employees. The message was clear. Jake was a boy, so he could be interested in business. I was a girl, so my interest was cute at best, inappropriate at worst. I internalized it for years. Thought maybe Dad was right. Maybe I wasn't cut out for business. Maybe I should focus on more feminine pursuits. I tried. I really tried to be the daughter he could be proud of in ways he deemed acceptable. I joined dance classes. He never came to recitals. I learned to bake. He never tasted what I made. I volunteered at church. He never acknowledged it. Nothing I did in the appropriate female spheres earned his attention or pride. But I noticed, when Jake did anything business-related, even minor things, Dad beamed. By high school, I stopped trying to please him and started paying attention to what actually interested me. And what interested me was business, specifically how companies worked, why some succeeded while others failed, what made operations efficient or wasteful. I took every economics and business class my high school offered. got a 4.1 GPA weighted, scored in the 97th percentile on the SAT, applied to business schools. When I told my father I'd been accepted to the University of Kansas business program, he looked up from his dinner. Business school? Why? Because I want to understand how companies work, maybe work in management or consulting after graduation. He actually laughed. Jordan, business isn't for girls. It's cutthroat, competitive, brutal. You're too nice, too soft. You'd get eaten alive. Maybe. Or maybe I'm tougher than you think. Sweetheart, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being realistic. Women can do lots of things, teaching, nursing, HR, marketing, but running a business, making hard decisions that affect people's livelihoods, that takes a certain hardness you don't have. You don't know what I have. You've never tried to know. He sighed like I was being difficult. I'm not paying for business school. If you want to waste time and money on a degree you'll never use, get scholarships or loans. But I'm not funding it. My mother, silent as always during these exchanges, looked at her plate. I got scholarships, paid my own way through KU, worked part-time at a logistics company, learned practical business operations while studying theory, graduated in 2015 with a degree in supply chain management and a job offer from a consulting firm in Chicago. My father didn't attend my college graduation. Too busy with work, he said. I moved to Chicago and threw myself into work at Deloitte Consulting. The hours were brutal. 80-hour weeks were standard, weekends were expected, social life was non-existent. But I learned fast. I specialized in operational efficiency for manufacturing companies, helping firms streamline production, reduce waste, improve margins. I was good at it. Really good. Within 3 years, I'd been promoted twice and was managing my own client portfolio. By 28, I was a senior consultant making $180,000 a year, flying around the country fixing other people's businesses, advising C-suite executives on million-dollar decisions. I'd call my mother occasionally. She'd give me updates on Dad, the business, family news. I'd share nothing about my work because she wouldn't understand the details and he'd never asked. Your father's stressed lately, Mom said during one call when I was 29. The business is struggling. Agricultural sector is down. Chinese competition is fierce. He's losing clients. Is it serious? I think so, but he won't tell me details. You know how he is. I did know. Robert Hayes would rather drown than admit weakness or ask for help. But I was curious. I pulled the public filings for Hayes Industrial Solutions. As a private company, they didn't disclose much, but there were enough breadcrumbs to piece together the picture. Revenue had declined from $12 million to $8 million over 5 years. Profit margins were razor thin. They'd laid off a third of their workforce. Accounts payable was mounting. They were behind on equipment leases. Hayes Industrial Solutions was dying. And my father, stubborn and proud, was clinging to outdated methods and refusing to adapt. I saw it clearly because I'd seen it a dozen times with clients. Aging owner, unwilling to modernize, bleeding money, heading for bankruptcy. I could fix it. The problems were obvious: inefficient production processes, outdated equipment, poor client relationship management, no diversification strategy. I'd solved harder problems for other companies. But it wasn't my company. My father had made it clear I had no place in his business. Still, I called him, tried to offer help. Dad, Mom said the business is struggling. I work in manufacturing operations consulting. I could take a look, maybe offer some suggestions. He cut me off. We're fine, just a rough patch. Every business has them. Dad, I've looked at the financials. You're not fine. You're in trouble. Let me help. Jordan, no offense, but you work with PowerPoints and spreadsheets. I work with actual machinery, actual products, actual clients. They're different worlds. You wouldn't understand. I've helped 12 manufacturing firms in the last 3 years improve their operations. I absolutely understand. You're a consultant. Consultants talk. I run a real business. There's a difference. Dad! I appreciate the offer, but we don't need help, especially not from someone who's never run anything. He hung up. That was the moment I decided. I wasn't offering help anymore. I was going to buy his company, fix it myself, and prove once and for all that his inability to see my competence was his blindness, not my limitation. Buying your father's company isn't something you do impulsively. It requires careful planning, significant capital, and ironclad legal structure. I spent 6 months preparing before I made my first move. Step 1. Understand the target's true financial position. I used my industry connections to gather intelligence on Hayes Industrial Solutions. Talked to former employees, current vendors, competitors who'd taken market share. The picture was worse than the public filings suggested. My father was 6 months behind on equipment lease payments. 3 major clients had left in the past year, taking 40% of revenue with them. The remaining workforce was demoralized, wages frozen for 3 years, no investment in training or equipment upgrades, benefits cut. The company was worth maybe $6 million in a distressed sale. But my father's ego wouldn't let him admit that. He probably still thought it was worth $15 million based on the peak years. Step 2. Secure financing. I had $400,000 saved from 5 years of high income and frugal living in Chicago. Not nearly enough to buy the company outright, but enough to demonstrate I was serious. I reached out to 3 private equity firms that specialized in manufacturing turnarounds, pitched them the opportunity. Struggling company, clear operational problems, experienced consultant, me, ready to step in as CEO. Path to profitability within 18 months. 2 firms passed. The third, Blackstone Industrial Partners, was interested. You're 29 years old and you want to buy your father's company? The managing partner, Sarah Chin, said during our first meeting. That's either the best idea I've heard all year or the worst. Walk me through the numbers. I did. Showed her the financials, the operational inefficiencies, the market opportunity if we modernized and diversified. Showed her my track record turning around similar companies as a consultant. Why not just let it fail and buy the assets in bankruptcy? She asked. Because that would take 12 to 18 months, destroy the existing client relationships, lose the workforce, and tank the brand reputation. Better to acquire it as a going concern, even at a premium, and preserve what's salvageable. Sarah leaned back. You really think you can fix this? I know I can. I've done it for other companies. This one just happens to be personal. That's what worries me. Personal feelings cloud judgment. My personal feelings are what give me the motivation to work 20-hour days to make this succeed. Your typical hired gun CEO won't care as much. She smiled. All right, we'll back you. Here's the structure. We'll put in $5 million in equity for a 60% stake. You put in your $400,000 for 10%. The remaining 30% comes from seller financing. Your father holds a note, gets paid over 5 years if the company performs. He'll never agree to that. He wants cash. He's 6 months from bankruptcy. He'll agree to whatever keeps him from losing everything. Step 3. Approach the target. I needed intermediary representation. I couldn't just call my father and say, I'm buying your company. He'd laugh me off the phone. I hired a business broker, Mark Davidson, who specialized in small manufacturing acquisitions. Gave him the whole story, asked him to approach my father as if I were just another buyer. Mark called Hayes Industrial Solutions in November 2023. Mr. Hayes, my name is Mark Davidson. I represent a buyer interested in acquiring manufacturing companies in the agricultural equipment space. Your company has been flagged as a potential acquisition target. Would you be open to a conversation? My father's response, per Mark, We're not for sale, we're family business, we're fine. I understand, but my client is very serious and well capitalized. Would you at least review a preliminary offer? No obligation, just to see if the numbers make sense. Fine, send something over, but we're not selling. Mark sent a letter of intent. $8.2 million purchase price. Combination of cash and seller note, quick close, existing management, my father, retained as advisor. My father called back 3 days later. Who is this buyer? Why are they interested? A private equity-backed consortium with manufacturing operations experience. They see potential in your client relationships and production capabilities with some operational improvements. What kind of improvements? Modernization, efficiency upgrades, diversification into adjacent markets. Standard turnaround strategy. We don't need a turnaround. We're doing fine. With respect, Mr. Hayes, your revenue is down 35% over 5 years, and you're 6 months behind on equipment leases. You're not fine, but you could be with the right investment and management. Silence. I need to think about it. 2 weeks later, my father called Mark back. I want to meet the buyer. That's when I stepped in. The meeting was set for December 15th, 2023, at a conference room in a neutral attorney's office in Wichita. I flew in from Chicago the night before, barely slept, rehearsed my pitch 100 times. I arrived first, sat at the conference table with Mark and Sarah Chin from the PE firm. Waited. My father walked in with his attorney, saw me, stopped cold. What the hell is this? Hi, Dad, I'm the buyer. His face went red. This is a joke. You set this up as a joke? It's not a joke, I'm serious. I'm buying Hayes Industrial Solutions. He turned to Mark. You knew about this? I represent Ms. Hayes and her financial partners. Everything I told you was true. The offer is legitimate. My father looked at me. You? You're going to buy my company? With what money? Private equity backing and my own capital. The deal structure is in the letter of intent. The offer is real and it's fair, more than fair, given your financial position. I'm not selling my life's work to my daughter who thinks she knows better than me. Sarah Chin spoke up. Mr. Hayes, with respect, you're not in a position to be proud. Your company is months from insolvency. You can sell to us now at a reasonable price, or you can lose everything in bankruptcy. Those are your options. I'll find another buyer. We've already contacted the other 3 potential buyers in this market, Sarah said calmly. They've all passed. You're overvalued relative to your financials, and most buyers don't want the hassle of a turnaround. We're your best offer, possibly your only offer. My father's jaw clenched. He looked at me. You did this. You sabotaged my company. I did nothing. You ran it into the ground yourself by refusing to modernize, refusing to adapt, refusing to admit when you needed help. I offered to help 2 years ago. You said no, so I'm not offering help anymore. I'm buying the company and fixing it myself. Over my dead body. I pulled out a folder. These are your equipment lease payment records. You're 6 months behind. The leasing company is filing for repossession next month. You'll lose your primary production equipment, which means you can't fulfill existing orders, which means your remaining clients will leave, which means you'll have 0 revenue within 60 days. I pulled out another document. This is your accounts payable aging report. You owe $340,000 to vendors, some of whom have already stopped extending credit. You're running on fumes, Dad. How did you get those documents? I have industry connections. People talk. Your situation isn't as private as you think. My father stood up. I'm not doing this. I'm not selling to you. Then you're filing bankruptcy by March, Sarah said. Your call. He walked out. His attorney looked apologetic. I'll talk to him. Give me a week. The week turned into 3 weeks. My father was fighting reality, trying desperately to find another option, another buyer, any scenario where he didn't have to sell to his daughter. But reality doesn't care about pride. The equipment leasing company moved forward with repossession notices. 2 more clients left, scared by the instability. Revenue dropped another 15%. My father called me directly on January 8th, 2024. I want to renegotiate. What terms? Higher price. $10 million, not $8.2 million. Dad, the company isn't worth $10 million. It's barely worth $8 million right now. Every week you delay, the value drops further. It's worth more than that to me. It's my legacy. Your legacy is dying because you're too stubborn to accept reality. Take the deal or don't, but the price isn't changing. I want to stay on as CEO. You can be COO. I almost laughed. No, that defeats the entire purpose. I'm buying the company to run it my way. You can stay as an advisor, paid consultant, no operational authority, or you can leave entirely. Those are the options. You really think you can run this better than me? I know I can. And deep down, so do you. That's why this hurts so much. Not because I'm buying the company, but because you know I'll succeed where you failed." He hung up. 2 days later, his attorney called Mark. "My client will accept the terms with one modification. He stays on for 6 months as strategic advisor with a $120,000 consulting fee. After 6 months, he walks away." "Agreed," I said. We signed the purchase agreement on January 22, 2024. My father barely looked at me during the signing. His hand shook when he signed the documents. I felt a confusing mix of triumph and sadness. I was getting what I wanted, but watching my father's dream crumble was harder than I'd expected. The deal closed February 1, 2024. I became CEO of Hayes Industrial Solutions. My father became my employee. The first day was surreal. I walked into the plant as owner and boss, not the little girl who'd been told the shop floor was no place for her. Every employee knew what had happened, that the founder's daughter had bought the company he was losing, that she was now in charge, that he'd been demoted to advisor. I called an all-hands meeting at 9 a.m. "Good morning. I'm Jordan Hayes, your new CEO. Most of you know me as Robert's daughter. Some of you might be wondering what qualifies me to run this company. Let me tell you. I've spent the last 6 years as a manufacturing operations consultant, helping companies exactly like ours improve efficiency, increase margins, and survive competitive pressures. I've seen what works and what doesn't, and I'm here to tell you, we're going to do things differently now. First, no more pay freezes. If we're going to turn this around, I need you engaged and motivated. Everyone gets a 5% raise effective immediately. Second, we're investing in new equipment. The old machines we've been limping along with are costing us more in maintenance and downtime than new equipment would cost in payments. We're upgrading. Third, we're diversifying our client base. Depending on agricultural equipment, market alone is killing us. We're going after industrial clients, defense contractors, anyone who needs precision metal parts. Fourth, we're modernizing our systems. New inventory management software, new client relationship management tools, better data tracking. We're going to know exactly where we make money and where we lose it. This isn't going to be easy. We're going to work hard, move fast, and make tough decisions. But if we do this right, in 12 months we'll be profitable. In 24 months we'll be thriving, and in 5 years we'll be the premier custom manufacturing operation in the region." Questions? Silence. Then an older machinist named Tom raised his hand. "Does your dad still work here?" "He's an advisor for 6 months. After that, he's retired." "Good. No offense to Robert, but he hasn't listened to our suggestions in 5 years. Maybe you will." "I will. In fact, I'm scheduling one-on-ones with every employee this week. I want to hear what's broken and how to fix it. You work the machines, you talk to clients, you see the problems daily. I need your knowledge." That got nods. I'd broken through the skepticism, at least partially. My father stood in the back of the room, face unreadable. After the meeting, he cornered me in the office. "You're making promises you can't keep. A 5% raise? We can't afford that." "We can if I implement the operational improvements I've already planned, which I will." "New equipment? That's hundreds of thousands we don't have." "Which is why I've already secured a credit line through Blackstone's banking relationships. Equipment purchases start next week. You're going to run this company into bankruptcy faster than I ever could." "No, Dad, I'm going to save it. Despite you, not because of you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." He left the office. Didn't come back for 3 days. The first 6 months were brutal. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, living in a short-term rental apartment in Wichita, completely consumed by the business. I implemented changes fast. Month 1 to 2, operational efficiency. Brought in a manufacturing efficiency expert, former colleague from Deloitte. Mapped every production process, identified waste. Reorganized the shop floor for better workflow. Result, 30% reduction in production time per part. Month 2 to 3, equipment upgrades. Replaced 3 ancient CNC machines with new ones. Financed. Upgraded welding equipment. Installed automated inventory tracking. Result, 40% reduction in machine downtime, 25% improvement in precision. Month 3 to 4, client acquisition. Hired a business development specialist. Attended 3 industry trade shows. Cold called 50 potential clients in adjacent markets. Result: 7 new clients, 3 of them significant contracts. Month 4 to 5, financial restructuring. Negotiated payment plans with past due vendors. Restructured equipment lease debt. Implemented tighter cost controls. Result: positive cash flow for the first time in 18 months. Month 5 to 6, workforce development. Implemented skills training for machinists. Created incentive bonuses tied to quality metrics. Hired 3 new employees to handle increased demand. Result: productivity up 45%, quality defect rate down 60%. By month 6, we'd turned a corner. Revenue was up 35% from the low point when I took over. Profit margins improved from -5% to +8%. We'd regained 2 clients who'd left and added 5 new ones. My father watched all of this happen. He'd come to the office a few times a week, officially there to advise, actually there to see if I'd fail. I'd update him on progress during monthly reviews, not because I needed his approval, but because the purchase agreement required it. Revenue is up 35% since February, I told him in July. We're profitable for the first time in 2 years. Equipment utilization is at 87%, up from 52%. Client satisfaction scores are up 40%. He stared at the reports. These numbers. How? By doing what I told you I could do. By modernizing operations, investing strategically, and actually listening to employees. I tried those things. No, you didn't. You clung to old methods and hoped the market would recover. You cut costs instead of investing. You blamed employees instead of leadership. You did everything wrong. That's not fair. It's completely fair. Dad, I love you, but you're a terrible manager. You were good at starting a business 30 years ago, but you never evolved. You let pride and stubbornness destroy what you built. He left without responding. His 6-month advisory contract ended in August. I asked if he wanted to extend it, knowing he'd say no. No, you clearly don't need my advice. I never did, but I appreciate you staying on during the transition. You're doing a good job, Jordan. I stared at him, those 5 words, the first praise he'd given me in 30 years. Thank you. I was wrong about you. You're better at this than I was. I don't know if I can admit that publicly, but I'm admitting it to you now. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt hollow. I'd spent my whole life wanting his acknowledgement, and now that I had it, it felt too late and too small. I appreciate that, Dad, but I didn't do this for your approval. I did it because I knew I could. He nodded. I know. That's what makes it impressive. He retired officially in September 2024, moved to Arizona with my mother, started playing golf, sent me occasional emails asking about the business, which I'd answer politely but briefly. The company continued to improve. By December 2024, 12 months after the acquisition, we'd doubled revenue from the low point and were on track for $10 million annual revenue by year 2. Sarah Chin from Blackstone was thrilled. Jordan, you've exceeded every projection. This is one of our best performing investments. We're looking at exit options. Might be able to sell to a larger manufacturing group in 3 years at a substantial multiple. Or I could buy you out and own it outright. She laughed. You want to buy us out? Eventually. Give me 5 years. I'll have the cash to purchase your 60% stake. Then it's mine completely. We'll see. But if you keep performing like this, we might let you. I'm 31 years old now. It's been 18 months since I bought my father's company. Hayes Industrial Solutions does $12 million in annual revenue, back to peak levels, but with better margins and diversification. We have 60 employees, up from 28 when I took over. I'm still CEO, still working 80-hour weeks, still obsessed with improvement and growth. My father is 63, retired in Phoenix, playing golf and volunteering at a veterans organization. We talk occasionally, short calls, surface-level updates. The relationship is cordial but distant. My mother called me last month. Your father told me he's proud of you, that you saved the company he couldn't save. Did he say that to you or to me? To me. He struggles to say it to you directly. I know, that's always been the problem. We've reached a strange equilibrium. He's acknowledged my competence, but can't fully express pride or apologize for years of dismissal. I've forgiven him mostly, but can't forget what it felt like to be consistently underestimated. The vindication is real but complicated. I proved him wrong, yes. I bought and saved his company, yes. I'm more successful than he ever was, yes. But what did I really win? His company, financial success, professional respect. But not the relationship I wanted with him. That's still broken, maybe irreparably. What I learned. Proving people wrong is satisfying but incomplete. You can achieve everything they said you couldn't and still not get the acknowledgement you wanted. That's okay. The achievement itself has to be enough. I didn't buy my father's company to hurt him. I bought it because I could, because I saw a path forward he couldn't see, because I was the best person to save it. That his ego was wounded was unfortunate, but unavoidable. Running a business is about competence, not gender. Every employee who doubted me initially now respects me because I delivered results. That's the only thing that matters in business. Sometimes parents can't see their children's potential because they're trapped in their own limitations. My father couldn't imagine me succeeding because he'd defined success in narrow, gendered terms. His failure of imagination was never my problem to solve. The greatest revenge isn't destroying what they built, it's taking what they couldn't maintain and making it better. Where everyone is now, Robert Hayes, my father. Retired, comfortable financially from the sale, playing golf, volunteering. Tells people his daughter took over the family business without mentioning he sold it to me because he'd run it into the ground. I let him have that narrative. His pride is fragile enough without me correcting the record publicly. Catherine Hayes, my mother. Also retired, seems happier than she was when Dad was stressed about the business. She's taken painting classes, joined a book club, rediscovered herself outside of being his support system. We talk weekly now. Our relationship has improved significantly. Hayes. Industrial Solutions. Thriving. $12 million revenue. 60 employees. 15% profit margins. Diversified client base. Industry reputation for quality and reliability. On track to be worth $20 million in 3 years, at which point I'll buy out Blackstone and own it outright. Me. CEO. Single, living in Wichita, working constantly, financially successful, professionally respected. Personally, still figuring out who I am outside of proving my father wrong. That's the journey I'm on now. If your parent dismissed your potential, underestimated your capability, or laughed at your ambitions, build anyway, succeed anyway, prove them wrong anyway. Not for their validation, but for yours. Not to change their mind, but to confirm what you already knew. You were always capable. They just couldn't see it. My father spent my childhood and young adulthood telling me I wasn't cut out for business, that I was too soft, too nice, too female, that I'd never understand real business. I bought his company, saved it, grew it past where he'd ever taken it, proved that every limitation he saw in me was actually a limitation in him. Did it fix our relationship? No. Did it earn his full acknowledgement? Not really. Did it satisfy something deep inside me that needed to prove him wrong? Absolutely. To every daughter told she's not built for business, every woman told to be realistic about her ambitions, every person dismissed because they didn't fit someone else's narrow vision. Keep the receipts, document the dismissals, remember the laughs when you shared your dreams. Then build something so undeniable that their opinion becomes irrelevant. You don't need their belief. You never did. You just needed your own. I'm Jordan Hayes. My father laughed when I said I'd start a business. He stopped laughing when I bought his company. And the woman he said was too soft for business now runs a $12 million operation he couldn't save. That's not revenge. That's just what competence looks like when it's finally given a chance. Wichita, Kansas, 6:23 p.m. Writing this from my office after closing a $2.1 million contract with a new defense industry client. The daughter who wouldn't understand real business just landed the biggest deal in company history. If you're the child who was underestimated, who bought or built something they said you couldn't, share your story below. Let's build a community of people who turned dismissal into fuel.